We actually have a naval blockade of Yemen. So the suffering that's going on with Yemen, 10,000 civilians, we're not just funding the Saudis to go ahead after their enemies in Yemen, but we're also conducting airstrikes in Yemen and ground forces. We're invading Yemen. We're fucking invading Yemen. And we also have a naval blockade. A naval blockade. In fact, that's what started World War I. UK had a naval blockade, not allowing German merchant ships to leave, Germany. And so that's what we're doing in Yemen. So essentially we're forcing all those Yemenis, there's refugees, anybody that's trying to run out, anybody going anywhere, nope. You stay right in there and you suffer. You stay right in the middle of hell, right in the middle of the fire. Now, we've been actually sending special forces all over the places. Now, this Ken McGraw, he basically won't release information unless it's been declassified because virtually all special forces, special operation forces are classified. So he says that SOCOM is willing to name only 129 of the 138 countries its forces deployed to in 2016. This is the nation. And this guy's only naming 129 of the 138. So that means there's 9 countries he won't admit to invading or sending special forces in. This is January 5th, 2017. So this would be right before Trump. But this is all the power that Trump is, that was transitioned into his pocket. So we're all over the place, right? Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen. And then it says here that 138 countries were deployed in 2018. We're only going to name 129. It might be easier to name which countries do we not have a military base in. If we have 900 military bases in 150 countries, there's only 180 countries, so there's only 30 countries we don't have military bases in. It says here from Albania to Uruguay, Algeria to Uzbekistan. America's most elite forces, Navy SEALs, Army Green Berets, among them were deployed to 138 countries in 2016. Last year! This is one of the highest totals of Barack Obama's presidency. We're in the golden age of gray zones, which is the murky twilight between war and peace. So, yeah. And, let's see, we have the emergence of a military expansionist China, an increasingly unpredictable North Korea, a revanchist Russia threatening our interest, and Iran. Let's see. General Thomas is writing this. So, it says U.S. deployed special operators to China, specifically Hong Kong, in addition to 11 countries surrounding it. Taiwan, which China considers a breakaway province. So Taiwan's not even its own country, according to China. Mongolia, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, India, Laos, Philippines, South Korea, and Japan. Well, it did not acknowledge sending commandos into Russia, North Korea, or Iran, but it does deploy troops to many nations that ring them. They also don't admit that they're sending troops to Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, even though everybody knows that we're already there. So, special operations, they're not mentioning the fucking countries we know that they're there in, but they're naming, 138 countries. And did we always go after the, bad guys? I heard that we were, responsible for the coup d'etat in Mali, and I thought it was directly responsible. The general story I heard was that after the overthrow of Libya, you had all these Gaddafi mercenaries return to Mali. They went to Mali, which has a lot of gold mines, right? So there's another reason for the U.S. to want to take over Mali. The gold there, just like the uranium ore in Niger, And then what's that? Cobalt. Cobalt is in one of those African nations. But in Mali, what did I just say? In Mali, you had gold. You got gold in Mali. So I heard that the U.S. had the operator. There was a person that we started the fucking coup d'etat, and it's incredible because Mali 2012, 2013, they had a president who had took over by force in 91, but he stepped down. And then he ran again, became president, ran for another term, won that term, and then it was about to come up to another election, and he agreed that he was going to step down. But instead of that election happening 1 month before that election happens, there's a coup d'etat. There's a coup d'etat right before everybody was shocked by it, to be honest with you, because Mali was about to have their elections, right? They had already had peaceful elections by this general that did a coup d'etat, but he was re-elected 2 times. He, provided whatever to the country, and now he was about to step down 1 month from the elections. There was this fucking coup d'etat by a bunch of Gaddafi mercenaries who had returned with all those weapons and nothing to do. And, and so that seems like that would be something you would want to intervene on and let them have their fucking elections. Let them have their fucking elections. What the fuck? So, if that's American-induced, shame on America. Now, if it's, consequences, unidentified consequences, or the future consequences, what do they call that? I don't know. But those the unintended consequence of destabilizing Libya was the mercenaries would go back to Mali and overthrow the fucking government. So our actions put into motion a chain of events that eventually, but I heard that we were directly involved in that. I'm not 100% sure on that because Chad was helping us. So we're in Chad, we're in Niger, we're in Cameroon. But with Mali, if we helped with that coup d'etat, then that means we're picking the wrong fucking people. That means we are not doing good. We are overthrowing democratically elected governments. And that's, if we are the government that gives the weapons to bin Ladens and declares Nelson Mandela a fucking terrorist, then we're creating more terrorism around the world. And instead of working on counterinsurgency, why don't we work on revolutionary assistance? Counterinsurgency means you're counter-revolutionaries. Why don't you be the revolutionaries? Be the assistants to, like France. Remember how France helped the United States with their revolution against their colonial British occupier? France helped us. They were revolutionary assisters. And that was the fucking king. That was the king helping us. And then when they threw the king out and they had their French Revolution, we turned our back on them. So good fucking, good friends we turned out to be, huh? So yeah, 138 fucking countries we invaded, special forces. 138 countries, and SOCOM is only willing to admit to 129 in 2016. And Trump is escalating in Syria. Trump is escalating in Afghanistan. Trump is escalating in Yemen. Trump's going to be escalating all these fucking wars. He's going to be escalating all these fucking wars. And people are seemingly going to give him a pass for 1 year. But they'll get sick of his fucking shit after a year. And that's what sucks, because I don't know where we're at, what we're doing, and, I have to watch the headlines. And, hopefully somebody finds something out. But we're in the dark. The American public, we have no idea what the fuck our government is doing. I heard we're in Morocco too. So what is our government doing in all these different countries? Are we the good guys? Hopefully, right? We give weapons to bin Laden. We declared Nelson Mandela a terrorist. So we've done this before. We picked the wrong guy. We also chose dictators. We'd rather keep the enemy that we know instead of pushing for the enemy we don't know. So even these horrible dictators will be best friends. Saudi Arabia will be best friends with fucking Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, all these other fucking countries. But if they're inviting us to go after Boko Haram, that's a good opportunity for us to do some good. So, if you trying to ask me to, on faith, just trust us on faith. I don't trust our military is doing the right thing in all these countries, but I'm also not assuming they're doing the wrong things, right? I just don't have evidence one way or another. We're in all these fucking nations, and there's no oversight. It's a shadow war, so they're very quiet. Very little reporting about them is going on. And that's how Vietnam started. You start out with just a smattering, a peppering of soldiers, and then after, 5 presidencies, the few soldiers that we put in Chad, in 2015, that drone air base, the Air Base 201 in Niger, the Air Base 301 in Cameroon, eventually those air bases expand to outright fucking war against the nation, against an independent national movement. So Vietnam, we were at war with the Vietnamese people. We set up a puppet government, and we were at war against the Vietnamese people. A nationalist independence movement. We're Vietnamese, and to hell with these damn occupiers. We're Americans, to hell with these British fucking occupiers. That is what we should be doing if we're trying to win hearts and minds. What the fuck? 129. They only mentioned 129. We're not going to say we was in Russia and North Korea, but we were in Mali, Burkina Faso, Somalia. 129.